the Synergy Sky webinar. We are soon starting. It's good to see that so many people have already tuned in, and we are really excited to share this exciting announcement with all of you. We will start in half a minute or so. People are signing up here and coming in. So we have a global audience. And remember that you can use the Q&A in your WebEx client for questions, and we will, of course, take those questions at the end of the show. So we will make sure that you get your questions answered. Yeah, I think we can start. Welcome to the launch of the Universal Gateway. Call all Google, Zoom, and Teams meetings from your SIP video endpoint. My name is Vemun Waksvik, and I'm really excited to be your host today and to kick off this webinar. Some housekeeping. Of course, stay in touch with us, send us an email or connect on any of these social media channels. LinkedIn is probably the most used by us, so feel free to connect with Synergy Sky on any of these social media channels. For our partners, which I can see many of you are, please use the partner portal. And for everyone, there is free trials available of our Interop Gateway that you are free to sign up for. And it's a very quick, hassle-free trial or proof of concept, if you like, that you can get from your Synergy Sky representative. On our webpage at the bottom, there's a subscribe button if you want to subscribe to our newsletter, release notes, or anything else. The agenda for today. We're going to introduce a little bit about the company so you understand who we are and where we are going. Why is interoperability important? And that is the topic for today, of course, and the launch of the Google and Google Meet and Zoom Interop on our Connect Gateway. At the end, we have questions and answers, so fire your questions on the WebEx clients. So, by that, I will introduce the two main speakers for this session, and that is Ståle Reitan, our CEO, and Egil Hasting, which is our CTO. Take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you, Vemun. Thank you. And welcome to this webinar. Synergy Sky is all about connecting meetings. That is our passion. That is what gets us up in the morning. Go out there and make sure that you can connect to your meetings. We don't care what type of meeting it is. We want to connect you to the meeting. And that is what we have been doing since 2008 when we founded this company. Our goal is to have millions of happy customers out there, users that need to connect to all types of meetings. We do have a global presence, and we have both partners and resellers. Among them is Cisco and Microsoft as partners. Now, what do we do when we connect meetings? So last year, we announced and released the Synergy Sky Connect service. The Connect service is a gateway that connects your SIP endpoints into Teams meetings. So I'm going to show you a quick video that shows what that experience looks like. And what you will see is this Cisco endpoint that you see on screen right now. It will connect into a Teams meeting via our Connect service. You will see two more Connect participants in that meeting. you will see touch panel interactions like raise hand, roster list, and you will also see that one of the participants from his laptop will be sharing a whiteboard session and also a PowerPoint Live presentation. So I'll start the video now so that you will see. First, the call will be connecting into the Teams meeting by a touch of a green button. We can now see that the call is getting established. And the call is now up and running. And Paolo, who's on the other side, he was already connected in the meeting, and you can see that from the roster. We can raise the hand, we can lower the hand, and now a third participant will connect from his laptop using the native Teams web client. And from that web client, he will start some advanced sharing. So he will start by using the inbuilt Teams whiteboarding. And what you're seeing on the big screen here is that the whiteboarding session is coming through on the SIP endpoint through the Connect service. And everything that everything that is done in the whiteboarding session is visible through the Connect call. And the participant is now changing to a PowerPoint Live session. So you can see on the laptop that the PowerPoint Live session is sent into the meeting, and you can see that the presentation is visible to all the participants. And while all of this is happening, it is keeping the Microsoft Teams experience. So that is the product that's been out in the market for over a year now. And what's important is, of course, that we have a product, and that product is developed according to sound processes and procedures. That's why we have the ISO 27001 certification in place. We're also GDPR compliant. We have a partnership with Cisco that allows our service to be purchased through the Cisco Commerce Workspace. And we are certified to integrate with the Cisco endpoints to provide the green button on the Cisco endpoints. We're also a Microsoft partner, making our products available through the Azure Marketplace. And last but not least, our product was also awarded the Product Innovation Award by Frost & Sullivan in 2022. So moving on, interoperability. What is it and why is it important? If you look at this slide, you will see a lot of names that you probably recognize. On the top, you see a lot of different vendors and meeting platforms. Below them, you see a couple of lines. The first one is showing the evolution of the Cisco meeting clients. So first, we're saying that it was Tandberg that was acquired. Cisco was also acquired by Cisco. WebEx was also acquired by Cisco. Then they brought out Jabber, then Spark, then WebEx Teams, and then WebEx. So there was a transition there. On the Microsoft side, you had the Exchange conferencing, live communication server, Lync, Skype for Business server, and so on, and then eventually Teams. On the protocol side, we had H2.3, SIP, and WebRTC. So there's been a constant evolution here. And what this really shows us is that new vendors are brought out all the time, but also even the existing vendors are changing the meeting platforms. So every 3 to 5 years, there's a big change in the market. And if you're a user and you have to have 50 different apps on your phone or on your laptop, this can be quite challenging. And imagine how it is when you try to join those meetings from a meeting room system like the one we're in right now. So our goal is that you shouldn't have to care about all the different ways to join a meeting. So let's be more specific. Let's look at the Teams platform and the Google and Zoom platform that we're announcing support for today. and also potentially other meeting platforms. So we've been looking at the different collaboration platforms out there, and we've been looking at the different entry points that exist into these meeting platforms. So how do you get into these meetings? So most of them have a PC client or a mobile client, like a smartphone client, that are usually proprietary. They sometimes also has PSTN or traditional phone service, a bit legacy. Some of them even have platform-specific endpoints like Microsoft Teams rooms, but all of them have a web browser interface in order to join these meetings. And the web browser is what we have focused on in Synergy Sky. So we have developed a platform that brings SIP endpoints through our Connect service into the web browser interface of the meeting platforms. And why is that? Why is that a viable solution? Well, web browser is utilizing a lot of different standards. So you have the W3C standards and you have WebRTC, which is a pretty common one. And they're all being developed on and supported and used by the big players out there. And then on the SIP side, SIP was ratified 21 years ago by the Internet Engineering Task Force. So that is also a standard. So what we're doing here is using the standards, the existing standards, in order to bring SIP endpoints into Teams, Google, and Zoom meetings, and potentially any other meeting platform that has a web browser interface. So what we then bring to the users, so instead of having 50 different apps on their phones and laptops to join meetings, they can use their email client to book meetings, to invite to meetings, then connect to those meetings through what's probably the fastest green button in the market to these various meeting platforms on their SIP devices. So today, we're announcing support for Zoom and Google in the existing Synergy Connect service. Egil, why don't you take it from here?
Absolutely. Thank you. So this is actually a very exciting day for us, because when we started out developing this product in 2019, we looked at the market and we looked into kind of what was the biggest problem of all the new coming meeting platforms and all the already established meeting platform. And there was a gap between the kind of the easy use and how to enter into the meeting experience. So interoperability has been something that has been very important for us all the way. But we had to start somewhere, and we started out with Microsoft Teams. So it's very, very, I'm very excited to be able to present today that we are also now the same capabilities for both Google and Zoom. So I will bring you through some demonstrations. Before we start, I will just kind of give you a bit heads up of what's going on in the video and talk a bit through it. So Paolo will be helping out doing some dialing into different meeting platforms. We have chosen to use a Cisco EX90 system, which is a 13 years old endpoint from 2010, which basically amplifies the standard of SIP on one side, and then joining into a Google Meet and a Zoom meeting, which is the WebRTC on the other side. Through that, he's getting a normal invitation to his calendar, joining in there by this laptop and his webcam, and then also getting the green button on the endpoint system and join that system in a regular SIP way. So with that, we can start off by looking at the Google Meet experience. And now Poly is part of the Google Meet, exactly the same way as we saw in the Teams video a bit earlier. And it's the same gateway. So if you get a Google invite or you have a Teams invite, the system will pick it up and direct you into the correct meeting. And now we can also look at the Zoom, which is the same thing. We're going from the calendar. This time we're going from an Outlook calendar and join the PC with the regular way. And we also introduced the EX90 in the same way as we did with the Google Meet. So as you can see, we have now been able to join 3 different meeting platforms by using one way of joining and one way of scheduling and one way of getting green button, which makes everything very easier for the end user. So let's take a bit look at the how behind there. So today's solution is consisting of an on-prem Synergy Sky management suite, which will be talking to endpoint or your cloud service and provision the green button. You will get invitation with a link, the URL, which is either from Google or Zoom or Teams, and it will be pushed onto the endpoint system and transformed into something called a SIP URI, which is like a uniform SIP number. When you click the green button, it will be going into the Synergy Sky Connect Cloud, and the SIP call will then be transformed into a WebRTC participants, which participate the meeting as the SIP user. And as you can see, you will then be part of the meeting in the regular way, and the users on the other side using either their Chrome rooms or Zoom rooms or Teams room will experience you as another meeting room into this meeting. And this is minimal interactions from the user. It's really easy, and we also then using our patent technology to allow this transformation going without any end user knowledge or any. You don't need to know anything in beforehand before you can participate in this meeting. Everything will be just happening automatically. Yeah, so that's our demo.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, what does that mean to the users? Well, it means that there's one way to schedule meetings. They can use one way of joining the meetings, and they can share any content they want in the one way they want to. So then you don't have to retrain your users. You can keep your existing endpoints and be more environmental friendly, and only happy users. Specifically, let's look at the details here. Pricing. I know that a lot of you want to know how much this is going to cost you. Well, if you're already using Connect, it's not going to cost you anything. It's part of the price. If you're a new customer, then we recommend you to speak with our sales representatives. This will be available for beta in June, so you can reach out for demos and testing. And then general availability will be this summer. We do have some customers that are running an on-premises version of Connect called Synergy Sky Connect for government. And this integration will also be available for the on-premises version as well as for the public cloud version. All right. Before we move into the Q&A session, we do have one more thing. So a lot of companies we have talked to out there, they want us to provide SIP registration for their endpoints because they need to have their SIP endpoints registered somewhere, and maybe they have sunset their on-premises infrastructure. So we're happy to announce that we're now bringing out SIP registration. For whom? Well, it's for all of the customers that are running Synergy Sky Connect in the public version. And the pricing? Well, it's included in the price. So just like with Zoom and Google, there's no extra charge. And in terms of availability, it will also be available this summer. So as you can see, this is now a complete solution with calendar integration, conference control, analytics, interoperability, and SIP registration. Everything you need. We will then move into a Q&A session, and let's see if we have received any questions during our call. Do you have any, Egil?
Yeah, we have a question regarding how resilient is a platform to updates on the Microsoft Google Zoom side. And we are running constantly testing on the platform to always be resilient to changes. There are quite many changes going on, but there haven't been any breaking changes so far, except the biggest change we actually experienced was the Teams change, where they changed into new client, but we haven't had any breaks so far. But this is about constant testing and interop testing, just like with any other communication products out there.
Well, what's also important to mention is that our gateway is using the Chromium framework,
yeah.
And all the web clients out there, all the meeting platforms, they are all optimized for the Chromium framework, which means that any breaks that are made accidentally or on purpose, if that should happen, would also break the experience from anyone else joining from a web browser. So it is unlikely to happen. There was a question regarding SIP registration. I think we answered that one already with our latest announcement. So if you need to have your endpoint SIP registered somewhere, that will be included as part of the service going forward.
Yeah, there is another question since we are on the SIP registration is what type of endpoint that will be supported for SIP registration. And we will get back to that, but we will be supporting the Cisco portfolio and most Polycoms and Poly. We can't promise all of it back all the way to HDX, but at least all the newer one.
Yeah.
And we do also have more exotic brands in our lab, but we can get back to that with a compatibility list.
Yeah. There's a question if I need to load some kind of license on the Microsoft Teams tenant. The answer is no. There's a very important thing that I think we neglected to mention, and that is our interop service with Teams and also with Google and Zoom. It works with any tenant. So it doesn't only work with the meetings that you organize, but it also works when you receive an external invitation. So if you receive an external Zoom invitation, for instance, even if it's free Zoom, or if it's a Google invitation or Teams invitation from the outside, and there is no dialing information in the invite, it will still work. It's part of what makes this solution unique. So no extra settings, no extra configuration, no policy changes, no extra licenses on neither of the platforms that you're calling into. All you need is the Connect service.
Yeah, that's correct. And there are some other questions that are going around this topic, but as we mentioned also a bit in the presentation, we are accessing the WebRTC or the web browser conferencing experience. And for all conference solutions that has this kind of entry point is a typical platform we could support. And they are usually what a lot of platforms refer to as guest joins. So the Connect solution will be joining in as a guest in that case.
And as a guest, someone will have to let the room into the meeting, because you can't really trust the room. You can only trust people. And that's why we encourage, for all types of meetings, we encourage to use a lobby and have an authenticated user letting the participants into the call, and also monitor the people they let in so that they can kick someone out if the wrong person has accidentally or purposely joined from a room that you didn't expect to have. Yeah, what I'm trying to say is, when a room joins the meeting, you only see the name of the room, right? So you don't really know who's going to be in that room. So having a moderator actually controlling who's part of the meeting makes the meeting more secure than saying that all your internal rooms in the organization are trusted.
Yeah. Can we get the ability to run reports for upcoming calls? We do have reports today that displays the upcoming calls. They are maybe a bit lacking, but yes, there will be a more thorough reporting on upcoming calls and meeting that are going to go through the Connect gateway. But not all of this will be available from launch day.
Yeah. There's another question here. What are the max number of concurrent meeting sessions that can be supported for the interops for a customer tenant? The licensing for Sky Connect is linked to the number of rooms you have. It's really tied to, if you have 50 rooms with a SIP endpoint, then you can enable all those 50 rooms to call into any type of meeting at the same time, so concurrently. So if you have 50 endpoints, then you can have 50 calls at the same time. There's no concurrency cap.
Does it support H323? The Connect solution in itself is SIP only. The registrar solution is SIP, but we can probably take a discussion about H323, but we have no direct plans for that now.
No, but there are solutions out there that will transform from H223 to SIP, so that should not be a problem to solve technically.
Yeah, and we have tested on those solutions and they work.
They work, yeah. So we support having a H223 call that is interworked into SIP, access our service. Let's see. There was a question regarding the availability. Again, this both the Zoom and the Google will be available for testing in June and generally available this summer. So reading through the questions there are quite a few questions. Thank you for sending them. So there was a question here. Do we require to create calendar resources for the endpoints to enable one button to join from endpoints? It depends if it's a Cisco or if it's a Poly endpoint. So with the Poly endpoints, then we're facilitating the calendaring information in the calendar so that the Poly endpoint gets the calendar information from our service. With Cisco endpoints, we are pushing the information to the Cisco endpoint. And in both cases, you would have to have a calendar representing the room in either in Google or in Exchange so that you have something to book. Because if you can't book it, then we don't know that it's booked and we cannot send the green button to the endpoint.
Another question, do you supply custom macros to handle DTM tone control, things like raising hand and software mute for each different platform? Currently, we have not implemented DTMF translation layer. because when we are accessing through the WebRTC, there is actually no WebDTMF, but we have not started discussing that. How we have solved it on the Teams with the Cisco panel is through macro controls, which is something we are also considering doing the same for Google and Zoom. But of course, that is not compatible for systems like Poly and or Yearlink or similar. So this is something that is a bit up for discussion.
Let's see. There's a question regarding concurrent calls for on-prem solution. If there's documentation on server VM requirements for a number of calls based on hardware performance, yes, we do have documentation on that. So please reach out to your SynGSky contact for those documents.
Can we integrate your solution with room reservation app for better user experience? We don't have a public API as of today, but there is, of course, possibilities if there is big enough requirements around it. We have everything we need in an API, but it's not publicly available. Zimbra, we don't support that today because the suite component, that the management suite, is directly talking to the Office 365 or Exchange API and or the Google API. So there is no solution today for Zimbra. Regarding, do you plan to add dial out option for VTC without supporting calendar and one-touch join? I'm not sure about the dial, what they mean, but
it's similar to another question here regarding ad hoc start and join. So on Teams, since Teams has been out there for a year, this is something that is about to be announced as well. So we might as well throw it in here.
Yeah.
So for Microsoft Teams, it will be possible to join Teams meetings without using a green button, so that you don't need a room calendar, which will also make it easier for endpoints, for instance, like Yearlink and Huawei, where we cannot display a green button, so that it will be easier for them to join. And also for external participants that are not using Connect to use Connect to join your meetings.
Yep.
So that is something that is also coming, I think it's right after the summer, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay, will there be a Zoom and or macro push to the endpoints to enable controls? I don't have any question to that. Answers to that.
Oh, we can't disclose that yet. As we have also mentioned a bit before, we haven't really gone through all the case scenarios. As of today, we have some control on the Teams through the panel of the Cisco, and we are looking into moving onwards in that direction.
Yeah. I'm asked about the pricing model. So the pricing is priced per endpoint, so per SIP endpoint per month. That is the standard pricing. Yeah. So let's see if we missed any here. There's one. Do I require a token to trust the EX90 to the Gmeet meeting? No. We're calling into the Google Meet and Zoom meeting as a guest, so you do need someone or yourself to let the room into the meeting, so that you decide who to trust.
Yeah, and the system kind of doesn't separate between your Google meetings or your external Google meetings, because it's still using the same guest access in both situations.
What resolutions will we support? So this one specifically is saying what resolutions will the EX90 connect at? How is the resolution negotiated? I can't speak for the EX90 specifically, but typically you would get 1080p back from the meeting and you would send 720p into the meeting. So since there are usually more participants in the view, we're not sending 1080p into the meeting, but you're receiving 1080p back.
Yeah, and then negotiation in regard to bandwidth is, of course, if there is packet loss or similar, you will be having degraded quality in terms of scaling down the resolution, etc. So it behaves kind of like another SIP endpoint communicating with the Cisco endpoint. Will endpoint registration allow for telephony integrations? We have not discussed that yet. For now, it's video registration, video endpoint registration. That is primary target. But please enlighten us more. Take contact with the sales people, and we can understand what you are referring to. Can we use HDMI cable for screen sharing from VC endpoint during WebRTC calls? Yes, you can. It do support BFCP, so you can continue using your regular meeting room the same way as you would if you were joining any video meetings, and that presentation will be shared out into the Google or Zoom meeting.
So you can use the WebRTC, you can use the HDMI cable, and if you have a newer Cisco endpoint, you can also use proximity and wireless sharing like Miracast.
Yeah,
that also works.
And also the WebRTC web browser sharing solution, which also the Cisco system has. So there's quite many ways in there, but all of those sharing option works as normal.
Yeah. Okay. How is it different and user-friendly for Cisco WebEx as a similar experience we can get by registered endpoint on WebEx Cloud for Teams, Zoom, and WebEx Call? I'm not sure if I get that one. If you have a newer Cisco endpoint, then you could use the inbuilt web browser in the Cisco endpoint to join the meeting. Typically, we've seen that it takes much longer time to start a meeting than we support, than it does with Connect. Also, it doesn't support HDMI sharing when you use the inbuilt browser in the endpoints. However, like we just mentioned, you can use any type of sharing with us.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen whiteboarding work with the inbuilt browser in the Cisco endpoints. However, that also works with us. And our goal is to support as many meeting platforms as possible through our technology that is focusing on any meeting platform that has a web browser interface. Did we miss any?
No, but it's a very good point. There is some similarities to the WebRTC in the endpoint solution as we provide as a more centralized solution. So there are similarities, which is also actually some of the good parts of it, because it means that all the endpoints out there supplying some kind of WebRTC solutions like that is also part of pushing this new standard onwards, like we're doing with Connect. So back to the question about how you ensure that you are compatible, or we had some initial questions about that the same thing goes for Cisco, because they also need to be able to support the changes in the WebRTC platform with their built-in WebRTC browser.
Yeah.
So they have the same duty as we have on making sure it's compatible. But we can support wider feature set. We're quicker to update, and we can also support older endpoints, which is not possible with a built-in browser support.
Not only that, but since we have centralized processing resources,
absolutely,
if there's a meeting platform that requires more compute per se, then we have more horsepower available than typically a standalone endpoint can. So it is more flexible and should be able to support a lot more platforms than just a standalone endpoint.
Yeah, and also from a security point of view, you don't need to open up your whole network for the endpoint to go out, because sometimes meeting rooms are considered a bit unsecure resource, and you don't want a full internet experience access, which is actually what's happened when the browser is going out there to the world. And through our solution, we're using the well-known zip pass going through the firewalls the regular way, as they always have been doing. For example, when using WebEx or similar. So it's a more streamlined solution also for the larger networks.
Yeah. Question here is asking, will you need Zoom SIP CRC with Cisco endpoints? So if you receive a Zoom meeting without CRC, you will still be able to call into it. That is part of the secret sauce here, is that we're able to call into all these Google Zoom Teams meetings, even when they do not contain any SIP information, because we connect in through the web browser interface of the meeting. And that's what Connect facilitates. So you don't need CVI, you don't need CRC, you don't need the tenant-specific interop solutions out there. You can use Connect that connects you across all the different tenants and platforms. Okay, I think we'll round off now. And if you have any more questions, please reach out to all of our representatives out there in the world. We'll happily respond to questions on social media, email, video calls, or meet us at one of the upcoming events at Cisco Live and InfoComm.
Yeah, thank you for participating.
Thank you so much.